I think we'll get started. Okay. So welcome to everybody. First of all, we want to thank Tracy Resmani for joining us today. Tracy is the administrator of the Office of Consumer Protection for the Montgomery County. And we are looking toward the holidays. Everybody's online these days, and all the more reason I suspect that we're going to be buying our gifts and doing so much. We're doing so much online. We're doing so that and the scammers know that. The scammers are out there. They know this as well. And many of the scams have gotten very sophisticated. I know people who have told me they've seen things they never expected to see that looked real. So Tracy's going to take us through how to avoid the pitfalls and enjoy the holiday season. So please.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am going to start the PowerPoint. Give me one moment to share. And I'm going to apologize in advance if we end up with a puppy barking in the background. All right, now hopefully you're seeing the slide deck and not my view, but let me know if I need to change. What are folks seeing on the?
It looks like the cover. It'll be the cover page.
Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So thank you. So the Office of Consumer Protection, which you may or may not know, is one of the only county level consumer protection agencies. Only Howard County and Fairfax County have something like us at the county level. The rest of the counties in the state of Maryland have to go to the Attorney General's office, who has a consumer protection division. So we are a boots on the ground local consumer agency. During the pandemic, our front office is closed, and so we are not able to take phone calls directly. Email, which is the email address you see on the first slide, is really the best way to reach us, and then we can call you. If email is an issue, call MC311. They will connect you to us, and then we'll be able to give you a call that way. So whether it's 311 or the email address, definitely folks can reach out to us because we are open and operating. So what do we do? And this will be a brief conversation. We primarily handle disputes between merchants and consumers. If you've paid out money, you're not happy with the results, maybe you didn't get what you ordered, maybe what you got wasn't what you were expecting as far as services or even a good. With limited exceptions, we can try to help. And the exceptions, the main exceptions are malpractice, anything in insurance, and landlord tenant. So those are the big three carve-outs. During normal times, which I guess these are now our new normal, we do provide specialists by phone, email, and in-person walk-ins. So you didn't need an appointment. You could come in anytime, pick up the phone, call us at any time, and email us anytime. And so the email and the phone calls are still no appointment needed. If you do want to meet with us in person, there are ways of making that happen. We're in a temporary location at the old police station where there's like thick bulletproof glass. So we can actually talk kind of face to face if you really need to be able to bring documents and figure out, what is happening here? Can someone look at these for me? If in the course of investigating a complaint, we find that the law has been broken, we do have enforcement authority. So that does set us apart from organizations like the Better Business Bureau, in that we can do citations and criminal charges. That's how we become a law enforcement agency as well. In addition to outreach and education programs like this, we also license and regulate certain businesses. So if you're getting your car repaired, they should be registered with us. If someone's coming into your home to repair an appliance like your fridge or your dishwasher or your TV, they should be registered with us. If you're buying a new home, if you're buying high-end secondhand goods, they need to have our license. And hopefully you don't get towed, but if you do, they should be registered with us as well. So quick facts about what it is we are dealing with. In 2019's identity fraud study by Javelin, they found that 14.4 million consumers were victims in 2018, totaling $3.4 billion in fraud. And that sounds like an astronomical number for 2018, except as you will come to find out, fraud is severely underreported. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. The 2019 report only showed that 550,000 people had been victimized by familiar identity theft. So the identity thief was someone that was close to them, family, caregiver, maybe a power of attorney kind of situation. So what are some general statistics beyond the identity theft sphere? Last year, you were not imagining it. Half of your calls to your cell phone were from robo-dialers. And as we talked about, these are underreported. eConsumer.gov only had over 40,000 reports of these calls coming from international, with $151 million in losses. The Consumer Sentinel database, which is the FTC database, showed a little higher number, 91,000 people were reporting losses of $276 million to scams based outside of the US. Again, this is the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority of the scams are coming from abroad, whether it's Eastern Europe, South Asia, the Caribbean. Vast majority of them are from abroad. That doesn't mean that there's nothing as homegrown. In fact, as I will talk as we go through, the FBI is forever cracking down on domestic scammers that use email and phone to perpetuate fraud. COVID-specific scams that we are seeing, these are just some really simple stats. In June of this year, New York and New Jersey reported about 100 seniors had fallen victim to the Grandparent Scam and lost over $1 million. And this is just in 1 month in 2 states. The scam is, if someone calls pretending to be a grandchild, they're crying, so they're not really understood. The voice doesn't sound like it's someone you would recognize, but they're crying, oh, grandma, grandpa, I'm in jail, I'm in the hospital, I need money to get out, there's COVID everywhere. We're also hearing some really horrible scams coming from folks that are texting. We'll talk about text scams in a bit, where they're sending these graphic images of mutilated bodies claiming to be from MS-13 and saying your child or your grandchild is next unless you pay. So grandparent scams are getting really, really aggressive. When the stimulus payments were first announced, CheckFish reported 180,000 fake IRS websites that were just there to either steal your information or steal your stimulus or both. The FTC has issued over 200 warning letters to companies that are providing fake and bogus cures or preventatives for COVID. The FTC wanted you to, the Kentucky had wanted you to give up your money or your insurance payments for the sake of, as a fake testing center. Maryland Secretary of State warned about fake charities, whether it's for healthcare heroes or for folks that had lost their job and needed food or money. So that was a big issue in the state. And the FTC issued recently about a warning about pop-up websites of retailers that don't really exist, selling products that don't really exist. And we'll talk about that as well. And our own WSSC had to issue an alert that said, you don't need special filters to remove coronavirus from your drinking water. Drinking water is not the droplets that we need to be worried about. So these are just some overview of the kinds of scams and statistics we've been seeing about COVID. So who is traditionally targeted? Seniors are obviously one of the traditional targets, because there's this concept of a nest egg that the scammers want to tap into. There's this belief that seniors are more polite and trusting. They're less likely to report fraud, and they may be living alone, so they don't have a sounding board when someone's calling them or emailing them, so they can talk it through with somebody. Millennials, on the other hand, are fast becoming a second high-ranking target because they're too comfortable online. They trust glossy websites too easily, and because they don't have all of the experience in the workforce yet, or they lacked financial literacy education in high school and whatnot, they just don't know any differently. And so the millennials on the one end and seniors on the other, those are who's been traditionally targeted. So who's targeted today? As the picture shows, everybody. The COVID scams are indiscriminate. They go after everybody and everything, whether you are, a business, an employee, senior, millennial, they don't care. As we'll talk in a bit, they've even target children. So everyone is a target of the COVID scams and identity theft. Common scams that we see through the internet or phone, obviously healthcare, trying to steal, saying your insurance has been compromised, click here. Investment scams, the Security and Exchange Commission was issuing an alert about offers to invest in companies that have preventatives or cures were coming through the internet or maybe through social media or whatnot. IRS, we already talked about stimulus money being stolen. Mail fraud is on the rise because of folks needing to find work from home. And so the mails are being used to perpetuate money mule schemes, and we'll talk about that in a bit. With folks passing, obviously, funeral and cemetery scams are on the rise. Social security inactivation, I've been getting those regularly, those calls trying to get me to verify my social security number so they can reestablish it. That's obviously a ticket to identity theft. Mortgage assistance fraud, that's huge right now as well as debt collection or student loan credit repair, that kind of thing. And utility cutoff, as it gets colder, usually in the hottest month and the coldest months, that's when you're going to start getting calls that your payments have been missed. And if you don't pay by gift card, wire, or some sort of payment app, right away, they're going to cut off your electricity. So that's a huge scam that we're seeing. Holiday scams, we'll talk about this in a bit. Online shopping, this is going to be huge. How do you make sure you're safe online when you're shopping? Gift card scams, obviously gift cards are for gifts, but how can you make sure that not only are you not using gift cards when you shouldn't, but when you are giving them as a gift, how do you make sure that the money's not getting stolen out from under your loved one? Shipping notification scams, we'll show you some examples of some scams that'll come to your email or your phone by text message. Coupons and special offers, those will going to be ripe, especially going into Black Friday. You may get a whole lot of offers that you weren't expecting, and they just want you to click here. We'll talk about why you should never click here. Porch pirates will steal, off your doorsteps. Mail marauders will literally steal out of your mailbox, and charity scams are going to be exploding because usually as we enter the holiday season, charities start to really increase their donation ask, and that's where the scammers slide in and basically hide in company. So we'll talk about that as well. Excuse me. So what is identity theft? It's when someone uses your personal information and your name to get goods and services without your permission. So the information can be your name, address, credit card or bank account information. Your social security number is the most valuable piece of information you own. Obviously, insurance account information can lead to insurance identity theft or medical identity theft. And that's a huge problem because there have been reports of folks being denied life savings medication because an identity thief had been allergic to it, or people who have been denied life insurance because an identity thief had had a heart attack, for example. So medical identity theft doesn't show up on your credit report. So it's like a sleeper crime is what I usually call it. Financial account crimes, I think folks are aware of that risk. If you have improper use of government benefits, then that is not just stealing from the government, it's stealing potentially from you, because now that benefit is not available because it seems that it's already been paid to you. So these are the most common types, and you know, we had a volunteer whose sister would use her name and information every time she got pulled over for a DUI. So identity theft doesn't actually have to result in the loss of money. In this instance, when the sister didn't show up for, or the volunteer didn't show up for a court appointment she knew nothing about, she was at the risk of being arrested. And so you could end up losing more than money. You could lose your liberty until you can prove that you're not who was actually pulled over and committed the crime. So who and where do you give your information over and who's asking for it? Knowing what to give, when to give, and what not to give to who is like the biggest thing, right? At your doctor's office, as a matter of habit, they will ask for social security numbers. You do not, and I stress, you do not need to give your social security number to a doctor. They don't need it for insurance. They don't need it for medical care. I haven't provided it in years, and it's never caused a problem. The places where you need your social security number is going to be anything dealing with credit. You're getting a loan, you're applying for a lease of some kind. Anytime they want to tap into any kind of credit situation, that makes sense for your social security number. If you are looking to get the sale prices at the local Giant and you need to open up a Giant club card or whatnot, you don't have to provide them with your real date of birth if that's all you're looking for. If you get your prescriptions through Giant, then that could get a little dodgy. If you go for your favorite restaurant and you want to have a coupon for anniversary dinner, they don't need to know that your anniversary is, you know, December 15th. You just want to be able to go out in the month of December, give another date in December, December 14th, December 10th, whatever it happens to be. So be picky about what you give to who, and make sure they prove to you why they need that date to be accurate or to have it at all. And that's probably your first line defense in identity theft. A quick terminology update for folks who may have not heard some of these terms, and one of them was new to me. Phishing was brand new to me. Phishing is phony and phishing, right? Someone's out there to reel you in and they're pretending to be someone. Phishing is pretty much limited to email. So you are giving access to bad guys through the email. And we've seen a lot of these sextortion schemes happening. So quick word on that. With all of the data breaches out there, your old passwords are available for sale. And so these scammers are emailing you and saying, I know who you are. This is your password. And you're like, oh, wow, that used to be my password. They really do know me. And they claim that they have found, you know, horrible things on your viewing history, and they demand money in Bitcoin. This is a huge, long-running scheme we've been seeing this year, so pass the word. Smishing is the same kind of schemes, but if it's coming to your cell phone via text message or social media apps like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, things like that. Again, you are giving access to the bad guys through this platform if you click on anything or open any attachments that are submitted through that. Phishing is voice phishing. So when you get that message that says press 1 to talk to somebody or press 2 to be removed from our list, don't press anything. Either way, you're engaging with the bad guys, and we'll talk about why engaging is never the best way to go forward. Hacking is the opposite of all of them. You are not giving direct permission. They are essentially breaking into a system to steal, and then your information is now taken without your permission. So some holiday cyber scams that I mentioned earlier, and these all came to my phone and to my email, so I'm like everybody's guinea pig, so we can talk about what I see every day. So shipping notification, that's going to be the bottom left. FedEx allegedly sent me a text. As you can see, there's 2 hyperlinks. And if you look closely, you'll see that it's not a FedEx link. It ends in .info. And who knows what the parcel 86760 link would have taken me to. You never want to click on any of this. If you are expecting or worried about some kind of a shipment coming from FedEx, UPS, USPS, go directly to their website and track it there. Anything that makes it easy for you to track makes it easier for them to hack in. Fake coupons and special offers, that's the top right one. So that's been a while and we miss you. Here's a special coupon. It was very special. I'm sure it contained all sorts of virus and malware. So anytime you click on things, they could be downloading a virus onto your computer and your phone, your tablet, those are computers. So you don't want to click on anything that is unsolicited. If it just pops up and you weren't expecting it, you didn't ask for a message, don't click on things. Fake websites. So if folks go to our website, which is montgomerycountymd.gov/OCP. And under media is where we have our newsletters. And we did a much longer newsletter on holiday scams. But fake websites are popping up for PPE and masks and all that stuff. But as folks are spending more time at home and not going to the gym, there seems a whole lot of fake websites popped up about gym equipment, or shoes, and just all sorts of shopping. And a lot of them start on Facebook or Instagram and end up on a Shopify platform. And so if you see the same ads with the same pictures and the same language in many websites, and we provided some names for you to think about, they all have really weird names. Like, if it's a shoe store, why doesn't it have anything dealing with shoes? What does it say, holiday mamas or something weird, and so we had some of the names in that newsletter so you can see. So these pop up, they have no product, and they are just looking to undercut a real retailer and to get your credit card information to be able to put this purchase on that credit card. And then we've heard about empty envelopes being mailed. So they have a shipping confirmation to say, oh no, we have confirmation that the sweater, the shoe, the toy, whatever it is you bought reached, and here is the shipping confirmation information. That way you have trouble disputing it with your credit card company. So if you're dealing with a fake website or you don't even know, search the website, find out how long it's been in business, see if there's any reviews, holiday mama scam, see if that's a scam people are complaining about never getting their products. So definitely you want to make sure that you are investigating these websites that you're not used to dealing with. And again, I'm going to keep raising the fake charities. We've gotten a lot of inquiries about charities that are not licensed by the Secretary of State. There seems to be no real information. There's all these fake testimonials on these fake charity websites. And last year we actually did an expose on scam packs. Real charities that are licensed have to provide some information about their finances and where the money goes. By registering through the Federal Election Commission, they don't have to provide that much information. So a lot of charities that are not really there to do the work of a charity are registering as a PAC. And then maybe 1% of the money they take in goes towards whatever they claim their mission is. And in this case, they were calling everybody claiming to be Rockville volunteer firefighters. That was really the Heroes United PAC, and maybe less than 1%. And I'm not 100% sure exactly how much, to be honest, went to one radio ad that we could find, and some minimal payments to politicians, none of them even in the state of Maryland. So charities don't necessarily have to be set up as charities for them to call you to pretend to be a charity. They could be registered as a PAC. So what are some COVID-19 cyber scams that we have seen? Cures, preventions, hotspot and virus tracking, those were really big over the summer. A lot of hoaxes were getting pushed around through social media, especially. Contact tracing was a lot of emails, do you want to know who in your neighborhood has it? Click here. Selling the bogus or unavailable products, we've talked about that. That's still continuing. I'm still getting so many emails about essential oils because that's one of their bogus cures, how essential oils can cure COVID, and for masks and gloves still. There was this Free to Breathe agency that was selling mask exemption cards, which there is no such agency and there is no such card. And lately we've been hearing about unsolicited offers for volunteers for clinical trials, and that you really have to dig in to make sure that this is really being supported by companies that are doing clinical trials, and they're not just COVID trials. That obviously that's the main vaccine that everyone's thinking about. There's a whole lot of other drugs that are in development. So if you do get an offer for a clinical trial, go directly to the company and check with the FDA, because they have to register clinical trials with the FDA. Stimulus scams, obviously that's going to, that was in the past. However, I raise it again because we're coming up to the point in time when the Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses are due to put in loan applications. So if you know anyone who took out a PPP loan, when it comes time for them to get a the forgiveness applications, they need to make sure they're getting the right application and they're not giving all of their information to scammers. So these have been like the main things that we've been seeing in cyber scams that are focused on COVID-19. So how can we deter identity theft or cyber scams generally? Shred documents. Don't just throw them away in the trash or in your recycling bin, just shred them. Things blow out of the recycling truck all the time. You don't want things just floating around with your personal information on them. You want to protect your information as much as possible. If you have things on a laptop or a tablet, make sure it's password protected so that not everybody can get into it. You don't want to give out your personal information without making sure that they need to have it and you're actually dealing with the party that they claim to be. Unsolicited emails, unsolicited texts, phone calls. Before you link, stop and think. I mean, that's a nice mnemonic to remember, because it's really important to slow down when engaging with unsolicited communications. When you're devising your passwords, use passphrases. And I always, as a joke, use I love kumquats. And you want to mix symbols and numbers and letters. So your O would be a 0, your S would be a $sign, and your A would be the @sign. You do initial caps. Make it a phrase. Make it the longer the better, and even better if it has nothing to do with you. So, if you're an avid gardener, I wouldn't put your phrase as being, I live to garden. You might want to pick something completely random that has nothing to do with you as a means of stepping up that protection. And this is a thing about the mail marauders I mentioned earlier, but for other reasons. You don't want to put checks or gift cards in the mail, especially if you're going to lift that little red flag. That red flag is basically a red flag that says, y'all come. These guys will go, or gals will go into the mailbox and they'll steal your mail. They're looking for checks. They'll wash the check, use gel ink if you're going to be using checks. They'll wash it, write it to themselves, use the account information to create counterfeit checks. If you're sending gift cards as gifts in the mail, they could obviously steal it. Now it's all theirs. Go to the blue mailbox, go to the post office. Those outgoing mail is very convenient for you, but it's also convenient for criminals as well. So how do you detect if you've been a victim of identity theft? So review your bills. If your bills stop coming, that's an issue. We've heard of instances where identity thieves have gone to the post office and diverted their mail. And that's how they were trying to hide all these new accounts that are getting opened. If that doesn't happen, if you start getting bills for accounts you've never heard of, that's obviously an issue. If you're looking at your bills and all of a sudden there's purchases that you know you didn't make, that's identity fraud as well. If you get credit denials, you should pull up your credit report. If you know your credit is good, you shouldn't be getting it denied. Is somebody misusing your credit? Have you been denied life insurance? Have you been denied a job based on your health? Those are the sleeper crimes we mentioned at the top of the hour. You want to get your credit report, and you get one free a year, and you can just go to annualcreditreport.com and they'll send you one. But you get one free a year from each agency, and know that there are over 300 consumer reporting agencies and 5 of the big credit reporting agencies. So the consumer reporting agencies are a big umbrella. Credit reporting is one sub species of a consumer report. Most folks know the big 3: Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. If you look on the slide, I mentioned 2 others that you may not have heard about. Innovis was primarily used by landlords, but it's being used more and more outside of the landlord-tenant situation. They don't provide a credit score, but they do provide credit reports. NCTUE is the National Consumer Telecommunication and Utilities Exchange. As the name implies, telecom and utility companies use this credit reporting agency. If you choose to freeze your credit with the big 3, nothing will stop bad guys from opening up an account at T-Mobile in your name because you haven't frozen NCTUE. So if you're looking to freeze your credit, and we'll talk about it in a bit, you want to make sure you're hitting the big 5, because the number 4 and 5, they're not nearly as big as the big 3, but they are growing. If you want to hear more about how to deal with identity theft and detect it, the FTC website that I have on the bottom of the slide is really, really useful. I mentioned that during the pandemic, cybercrime is not limited to anyone specifically, and that it even affects children. And so I just want to take a moment so that we talk about that, so you can let your kids and your grandkids know that this is out there. Because children are now doing school online, they're socializing online, and like their entire life is pretty much online now. It's really important to teach them how to be safe online. It's important to teach them to share less about who they are, what they like, where they live, and it's important for them to connect less. Can they see this person in school on a given day? If so, that's probably a less risky connection online than someone who lives clear across the country and is only pretending to be a 10-year-old boy, for example. You want to make sure you're pruning the friends and followers. In fact, if they happen to be on social media, and I always advocate, much to my children's dismay, that they can't have any social media at all until they're adults. But if your kids are on social media, it's important for you to be able to prune their friends and followers, set the most restrictive privacy settings you can on their social media so that the public can't see what they're posting and interact with them. And then know their passwords, review their history, review the apps on their devices and the games they're playing. Games have in-game chat features so if you're watching their emails and their texts, you may not know they're using the chat feature of a game to communicate. And there's been horror stories about pedophiles using that genre to reach children. Australian authorities brought to light this manual that was circulating that was teaching pedophiles how to exploit kids during the pandemic. It was like a how-to guide. And our own neighbors in Fairfax County, they set up a sting and they arrested 30 men ranging from the ages of like 20 to 70 that were exploiting children online during the pandemic. So cybercrime is not just focused on stealing identities or stealing money. It does actually go and target children in a really, really dark and negative way. So how can you defend against it? So fraud alerts, credit freezes, and credit locks. A fraud alert used to be 90 days. It's now a full year and it's free, and it slows down a credit. So if you want to put a fraud alert on your account because there's been some suspicious activity, it won't stop you or a bad guy from setting up an account in your name. It'll just slow it down, force the creditor to ask more questions to validate identity. A credit freeze, as the name implies, is a complete freeze. You can't access your credit and no one else can either. And if you're thinking that you might want to do something like get a car or a loan or whatever, they'll give you a PIN. You got to give it about 3 days to unfreeze. So it's, you know, can't really, in an emergency situation, a credit freeze might slow down. If your car, for example, breaks down, you get in a car accident, all of a sudden you need a loan on a car, you're gonna have to wait 2 or 3 days to unfreeze your credit. Both of these are free. In Maryland, you can get a credit freeze on a minor child or an adult you have guardianship over. And these are items that have federally written protections for you as consumers. When these items became free, the credit reporting agencies created this credit lock feature. And it is, as the name implies, you can lock it or unlock it, and literally you swipe it on an app. Last I heard, it was $20 a month. The risk with a credit lock is that there's no federal protection at all. It's a creature of contract written in fine print behind a click in a terms of service. So what kind of protections you were offered is unclear. And if you have the time to read pages and pages of it, by all means, go ahead. I don't necessarily recommend credit locks, but it's something out there that you need to be aware of. But if the credit lock fails, it's unclear what rights you would have. But with a credit freeze and a fraud alert, there's federal authority that gives you the rights. You also, obviously, if you have one credit card that's been misused, like I got a call saying, hey, are you in New Jersey at Costco buying computers? No. You can contact the security and fraud departments of other credit card companies and say, hey, I just got a call from Bank of America. Someone's using my credit card in New Jersey, Costco, just giving you a heads up. That's sort of you putting them on notice that something's happening on your credit account so that you're doubly protected. You want to file a police report if you've been a victim of identity theft, and that is someone has set up fresh accounts in your name and charged it. This police report will be useful later in fighting against any debt collection that may come your way. They won't issue you a police report for the guy who's in Costco trying to, buy computers, but if fresh accounts are being created in your name, that might be something you might want to get a police report. In Maryland, you can get a restriction on your driver's license. And so in the case of the volunteer that I had, whose sister was misusing her ID, she was able to get that restriction on her driver's license so that whenever the police pulled over someone claiming to be her, they knew they had to ask for additional information before they assumed that she was really, the person with the ID was really her and not an identity thief. And obviously, if you lost money, you want to report it to the FBI at ic3.gov. The Federal Trade Commission basically uses that Consumer Sentinel database to collect a lot of data, and then they will coordinate with domestic and international agencies and to do enforcement work. So I want to say 2 years ago, they worked with Indian authorities who tracked down those IT tech support scammers that were calling you claiming to be Microsoft. So they were able to shut down a call center just because they were able to crowdsource all this information from folks who were providing information to them. This was a little out of order, but we kind of went through the differences between fraud alerts and credit freezes. And so this, since folks have the PowerPoint at home, this gives you a nice visual of the differences between the three products. So internet safety, how to stay safe on the internet. You want to make sure your data is backed up on a secure media. A lot of folks will have, thumb drives that are kind of like little boxes like this. If you happen to find one laying around, don't pick it up and plug it into your computer. We've heard a lot of stories about viruses being put into these thumb drives in the hopes that someone will plug them into their computer to find out who it belongs to, because you're trying to be a good Samaritan and you want to give it back. So don't do that. And you want to make sure that if you're going to be using some kind of a cloud backup, that it's a secure one. Google's been hacked, and Dropbox has been hacked. So you want to make sure you're going for a cloud storage that is encrypted and has really good security. You want to make sure your computer's operating system is up to date. So that's your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your computers, all of them have OSs. They have to make sure they're all up to date. If you're shopping online, and this is obviously going to be key right now, you want to look for that lock, the HTTPS. The S stands for secure. That means that the exchange of credit card information is encrypted. It doesn't say that the person that's receiving your money isn't a scammer. They're just being very safe with your information. So that's one thing to be aware of, is that the S, the lock, is for encryption. And then, know the difference between credit and debit cards. Credit cards and debit cards that have the Visa, MasterCard logo, they're different creatures. Credit cards are protected by Regulation Z, which has a whole lot of protection in place for consumers, and that's why you've got the limitations on liability, you've got the standard dispute procedures, things of that nature. Debit cards that have the Visa, MasterCard logo, they're governed by a different set of regulations, Regulation E, and they're the same. They're essentially treated like electronic wire transfers, electronic funds transfers, like payment-to-payment apps like Cash App or Venmo. The protections that are offered are different under the law, and sometimes the banks will treat them the same as credit cards, and sometimes they don't. So when you're shopping online, credit card is better because of the mandated rather than voluntary procedures that are out there. But if someone hacks into that retailer's website and steals your credit card information, you're just racking up debt, which you will then dispute and bring down. But if they steal your debit card information, they're emptying out your bank account. So until you can get that money back, you're without money. So when you're shopping this holiday season, make sure you're using a credit card and not debit cards. Don't use payment apps unless you're engaging in a transaction with someone you know. Payment apps are even harder to trace than payments through debit cards. Passphrases, again, we talked about that. Complicated, the more complicated, the better. And be really careful about attachments. We've talked about a lot of websites, there might be ads, banner ads, or ads in the middle of articles that may not necessarily look like they're ads. If you accidentally click on things, it may take you and download things, take you to other websites to download what you don't want on your computer. Be really, really wary of free download offers of software that, you know, even legitimate companies will bury a whole lot of extraneous programs. I remember my child wanted to download some video game, and I kid you not, like 20 or 30 different applications got downloaded with it, to the point that the computer was just not able to function anymore until I cleared them all out. So they don't necessarily have to be malicious downloads, but they can cause problems. Right now with the holidays, you're going to get a lot of chain mail, or you might get some sister gifts, like, you know, hey, send this out to 5 friends, and, you know, for every friend they'll get 5 friends, and it's about getting gifts back of $10 or less. These are just the old chain mail, junk mail that's now gone cyber. Be very careful of online games that proliferate through Facebook. They are not really trying to guess which Game of Thrones character you're the most like. They're trying to understand you, so that they can better understand what kind of a potential target you are, for example. If anything, the Cambridge Analytica scandal has taught us is that we are the greatest commodity out there for a lot of people, and how they get information about who we are and what makes us tick. It comes through these games. But more likely, I see this often, it's, you know, they're, hey, how many of these questions can you guess about me? What street was I born in? What's my favorite color? What was the name of my pet? What's my mother's maiden name? Well, these are not fun games. What are these 4 things? These are the most often requested security questions when you want to reset your password. So, so some of these Facebook games are really, really obvious, but yet folks still play them. Trust your instincts. If something appears too good to be true, it probably is. I think we don't trust our instincts often enough, and we talk ourselves out of it. So definitely go with your instincts. And we talked about not clicking on any pop-ups, because that's where danger lurks often. And again, this is a little out of order, I apologize, but we talked a little bit about the difference between credit and debit cards and money transfer systems. So what is the safest to use online, even if you're using with credit cards? Obviously, credit is better than debit, but if you happen to be in a store and you have to choose between chip versus the tap and pay or the swipe, chip is the safest, absolutely the safest. Tap and pay is a close second, and swiping isn't, because obviously the whole reason we went from swiping to chip was because that information could be just downloaded from the ether with the right kind of equipment. So when you are shopping, whether it's in stores or online, use a credit card. And payment, the mobile payment, P2P apps like Venmo, Zelle, Apple Pay, they could be linked to your bank account rather than a credit card. So if you're going to set one up, set it up with your credit card so that they don't have direct access to your bank account. Those transactions are treated like cash, which makes them really hard to unwind and dispute. And there's no clear statutory protections yet for these P2P apps right now. And with Venmo, there's some privacy concerns, because the default for a Venmo app is to post about every transaction you make on your social media. So you have to go in and preemptively change it so that you're not sharing with the world what you're just buying for your nephew or your grandchild or whatnot. You don't want to use Western Union or MoneyGram or any kind of wire service to pay for gifts or things you buy online, because those are virtually untraceable. Wire transfer services really should be to be able to send money to somebody you know that needs it, or obviously escrowing. If you're buying a house, you may need to wire the money. But that's really the limitations that in everyday life that I can see that most folks would want to use a wire service. Of the peer-to-peer payment systems, Consumer Reports did an analysis of them. And Apple Pay only was the safest because it required the least amount of information from you. So if it's hacked, it's got the least to lose. Zelle, being connected to your bank, obviously has the most information. So it wasn't that they were any more or less secure. Consumer Reports ranked them this way only because of how much data they've collected on you. Again, with P2P, dispute resolution with these payment apps are really tough. We see a lot of scammers are using that now, requiring payments to be made through these because they disappear. We had someone who did a parking lot auto repair, and the Venmo account that they used to pay was set up in the name of a child that was completely unrelated to the scammer. And the address that they used was completely unrelated, and we just couldn't ever find them because everything led back to this child who was unrelated to the scammers who were taking money for shoddy parking lot repairs. So if you end up using a payment-to-payment app, you want to make sure that you're setting the most secure levels you can. You want to use multi-factor authentication, maybe use your fingerprint, a PIN, some kind of password generator that every time you log in, it requires you to set up a password so that if your phone falls into the wrong hand and they get past your PIN to get into your phone, they can't just get access to your bank account. And we did talk a little bit about privacy. So you want to make sure that your privacy settings are set so that you're not oversharing what is happening. So this is the last slide, and as I love this quote. As a young child, my mother told me I can be anyone I want to be. Turns out this is called identity theft. So I also have our email address here again, and this would be great. I know I've dumped a whole lot of information on you in the last 50 minutes, but if folks have any questions, I'm totally available to answer them for as long as needed. Bye.
That was great, Tracy.
Okay, yeah, it is a lot to take in, all in one, one swipe. So we haven't gotten any, although I had a question right away. But
sure.
We have some, you guys can unmute yourselves or you can enter into the chat. I think it would be better to, if you have a question, enter it in the chat, then I'll read them off to Tracy. My first is, what about PayPal? Is PayPal safe to use?
PayPal is the granddaddy of all P2P functions out there. And I'll show you what I did to make PayPal more secure. Hold on. The benefits of working from home. So I made them send me a little device. So every time I want to do any kind of transaction, I have to press the button. It gives me a series of numbers that I have to enter into PayPal to authenticate the transaction. That means no one can get it. So that's how I make PayPal more secure. With Venmo, which I also have, it's on my phone, and I have to use my thumbprint to not only get into my phone, but my thumbprint to access Venmo as well. So that means even if my children get into my phone, which they do often, they can't engage in any transactions that way.
Okay.
Yeah, but any of these apps you can do either a authenticator, a multi-factor authenticator app, or you can do these kinds of devices like I just showed you. There's ways of setting up your phone. You can download an app.
There's no charge for that kind of thing?
No, the Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator is free. Setting up the security, the Venmo one, it's part of settings. So you just have to go into settings and you set it up, and it tells you you have a choice of how to do it. Every kind of program out there, if you look in settings, you will find a way to add multi-factor authentication or some kind of a double verification to be able to get access. And that's probably a good, safe thing to do anywhere you can.
Do we have any other questions at this point? I also noticed something that maybe it was on the first screen or the second screen. What are woodchucks?
Oh, I did not talk about it. So I do another program, and I'm happy to come back, that talks about mail scams, phone scams, cyber scams, which we got the whole hour on was pretty much cyber scams, and then door-to-door scams. And woodchucks, it's like the poem, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck, right? Well, they don't chuck wood because woodchucks don't chuck wood. So woodchucks are this local phenomena. They are unlicensed contractors that are most often landscapers from Culpeper County. I don't know why. So the Woodchucks Task Force is something that was created when Ike Leggett was the county executive, and it's a task force of us, Howard County, DC, Fairfax, and Prince William counties. And it's a law enforcement group, and we share information on these guys. So they're storm chasers. They come to your home. They're cleaning up the debris. They're they're up in your tree. They see your roof needs work, your gutters are down, your siding's a mess, and then they try to convince you to hire them. Oh, I have some free time. I can give you a great deal. They then get your deposit. They don't come back. And all you have is a handwritten invoice that says invoice and the name and a phone number. Who knows whose name it is? Who knows whose phone number it is? They don't come back. Or if they return, chances are the work they do is shoddy. They might try to come into your house and see and convince you they can do some home improvement for you. So it's woodchucks is a very local phenomenon of unlicensed contractors that somehow start in landscaping before they get into your home or on top of your home.
Okay. I don't know if anybody's had experience where whether you've gotten a phone call, because that's another thing that's happening a lot. Of course, it's not just the phone, but have you actually encountered somebody where you realize as you were in the process of this that, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to go any further with this. This was probably a scam. I don't know if anybody's had that experience yet. Because I've had friends who have told me that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and folks, if you do find yourself in that situation, nothing commits you, right? You can always walk away. Be wary of folks, even in this day and age, who may come to your door. The PEPCO is not going to go door to door wanting to lower your monthly payment. But we've heard stories of really aggressive folks pretending to be PEPCO, demanding to see your bill and not going away, saying, I'm going to get fired unless I check this box that says I saw your bill. Well, they want to see your account number so they can switch your supplier. Maryland's a deregulated energy market, so whether you're getting your energy from the defaults or whether you're getting it from Sunsea or Smart One or whoever, and these are two companies that are in serious hot water with the Public Service Commission right now, you're still going to get your bill from PEPCO, so you wouldn't even know your supplier has been switched. So nothing stops you from slamming the door in anyone's face. I see a question, is there a way to verify phone solicitors who are asking for pledged amounts? That's a good question. That's how actually we found the scam packs. They happened to call a Rockville volunteer firefighter. And so he contacted us and said, what should I do? And we said, great, why don't you get that in writing? So with a charity ask for them to submit something in writing. Say, look, I'm not going to give you any information over the phone. Why don't you send me something for my pledge? And so then, if they really exist, they'll send you something in the mail. So that's how you can at least cut off the complete scammers who are operating out of a call center somewhere. And then when you get something at home, you can then research the company, and you can take your time. You can contact us. You can contact the Maryland Secretary of State's office, because they are the ones who has to license any charity that's going to be working in the state. It gives you time to research the charity. Charity Navigator, Give.org, GuideStar. Those are the three big companies that go out there. They're nonprofits themselves, and they collect information on charities and provide information for you so that you don't have to go to many different places to research. Go to one shop and look them up, see what they say, how are they graded, what are they doing with their money? Are they doing what they say they're going to be doing with their money? If you can't find them there, then they're either a PAC or they're not really a charity. And so that's a good way to cut it down.
The form that they have to submit also, the 990, is it?
I'm sorry?
I think nonprofits have to submit a form, which again,
Right.
is Charity Navigator, and they'll tell you how much money they're spending on their mission and how much they're spending on office, and so you get a sense of, I mean, sometimes there are organizations that say, but that's not fair because, we really are so, we need so many people to do the kind of work we do. We really do have to pay them. But in essence, it does give you an idea of how much is going toward the charitable work and how much is going toward their administrative expenses. And that helps too. I see we have another question here, a couple of things. First of all, someone says that that Zelle, that Bank of America is using Zelle. And so, is it possible to use Zelle safely?
Yeah, so Zelle's actually multiple banks have combined together to create that product. So Wells Fargo is part of that. There's a way of using payment-to-payment apps safely, right? So the reason Consumer Reports graded Zelle lowest is because it's connected to your bank account by your bank, and therefore it has the most information to lose if it gets hacked. The safest way to use P2P apps is to use it to pay people you know. When folks have gotten in trouble is when they use it to buy online, pay people they don't really know, like the parking lot bandit, as I call him. So it's really not meant to be used with strangers. So you can use it safely if you set up multi-factor authentication, make sure you're only doing transactions with folks you actually know.
Yeah, there's obviously an advantage in the situation that we're in right now when it's harder to be able to pay somebody. You may not want to send it through the mail, but you're not that close, or it's out of town or whatever. That's why I think people are using these more than they had in the past. There's a question about charity requests, loan apps, all kinds of solicitations we're getting right now. Can we just toss them in the recycling bin, or should we be shredding them?
Well, I always shred credit card offers, those checks you get for loan, balance transfers.
Yeah.
Anything that has the potential to be misused if it falls off the back of a truck, I shred those. But if you think that what you're getting is a scam through the mail, send it to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. They are really becoming very aggressive. Email became this great panacea for scammers because it was cheap to communicate, and then these junk filters became so aggressive that they're now coming back to the mails. So the U.S. Postal Inspection Service is becoming busier. But if you think, if you're getting like multi-level marketing schemes, you used to get those invitations for free lunches, and then you would be like, solicited to use some, to join some investment group or sell your timeshare, God knows whatever. If you suspect that the mail is being used for something less than honorable businesses, report it to USPIS.
There's actually one of those letters that comes frequently, I think, around this neighborhood some investment people and they target seniors. That it's a free dinner over at Mrs. K's over on Coles Hill Road. So that's come to us a number of times, and
they may be a completely valid company. And I don't want to necessarily paint with a broad brush. It's just that when folks end up going to these events, it's kind of like the timeshare, right? After a couple hours, you kind of feel like the only way you're going to leave is if you have to sign something. You know what I mean? So it's not that they are necessarily bad investments. It's just that making sure that you walk out of there having done what you intended to do.
I have another, before I retired, I worked for Kiplinger's Personal Finance. So we actually did a story about this. The women who used to live around this neighborhood, I went to one of these things. And I think they were selling variable annuities. And the problem with the kind of annuities that we're selling was that if you did, it's one of those, if you don't understand it, you probably shouldn't buy it. Right. It was that kind of thing. So it skirted the edge, skirted the line between a good idea and not a good idea. And so that's it. That's the other thing you have to be careful. If you go to one of these things, you can certainly go, but you have to be careful about what it is they're trying to sell you. All right. Got anybody else here? Got any other questions?
I'm just wondering, we've had two companies come to our door. We didn't do it, but roofers who offered to inspect for hail damage. And
we just did a press release on that. Did you catch the press release?
No.
Yeah, we just did a press release on roofers. Actually, it was just last week, Wednesday. And it was, if you were on the county executive's newsletter, we were in the newsletter as well. So those are storm chasers, and there's two kinds of storm chasing roofers. One is the one that says, I'm going to do a free inspection. I'll work with your insurance company. I'll do all the claims work, and we'll get your roof done. And then, so then you're all of a sudden you're in this transaction that you may not have even been thinking of with this particular company. Are they even licensed to go door to door? Who knows? Are they licensed as construction to do home improvement? Who knows? Are they a legitimate company? Who knows? So that's one aspect of the scam. The other aspect, which we've seen, is that you end up signing this agreement to agree, and you get into this transaction that their time in working with your insurance company is consideration for your contract and your agreement to absolutely replace your roof and absolutely use them. So that if your insurance adjuster comes and says, oh yeah, your roof could be repaired, they're like, great, we charge $20,000, but then your buddy's company would have charged you $7,000. You can't change and pay less. And by taking you out of the equation, you also don't talk to your insurance company. So you don't know that if you make this claim, your premium will go up. Maybe your policy will get canceled. And in a few instances where the consumer has said, no, I'd rather use this cheaper company and save my insurance company some money, they've been sued for the contract price, for the full contract price. So, the first part of it is you have no idea who these companies are. Are they licensed? Do they do good work? You don't know any of that. The other part is, if you sign one of these agree contracts, you may have no choice. And then that becomes a completely different story. So that's the two-part roofer conversation in our press release. If you go to our website, here, and I'll show you, I can give you our website real quickly so you can see it.
Well, thank you. We were just wondering what the gotcha was. So
yeah, that's the gotcha. But I was going to say, you can find our, I can show you where the press releases and everything is on our website if you guys are interested in taking a quick tour. It's up to you.
We should be probably checking it out fairly frequently because there's always something new in the world of scams, and it's always nice to know what's going on and what you guys are doing on a regular basis, which I didn't realize that Montgomery County, although let's put it this way, I knew Montgomery County was one of the best places to live in terms of consumer protection. And that I didn't realize that we were among the very few counties that actually had, that we had our own department. So
well, this is our website, and you can see our addresses there. Do you see that? And so here where it says file a complaint, this is where you would go to file a complaint. This is where you would find all of our social media, including YouTube. I have a lot of webinars up there if you want to watch more of our programs. But this is where you would find here under media, OCP newsletters. This is the full conversation about holiday scams. And here it is under the press room is where you can find about the roofers that I just mentioned. But we've got a press release on scams that start on social media, more on phishing, smishing, and vishing. So you can find a lot of information right here on our website. And if you want to see, you can actually see our tweets right here. So even if you don't have Twitter, everything that I put on Facebook, I put on Twitter. So even if you don't have social media, you can just come on and just read all of our latest posts here. And here's some of our events, including this one that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, unless there's any more questions, I think we'll end. But this has been terrific. This has been absolutely terrific. I know, as I said, I worked at Kiplinger, and so we used to cover this kind of thing. I learned a lot tonight. I didn't know about the identification, the authentication on the PayPal, and a bunch of other things I didn't know. So that's really cool. And we should be, I think you've reminded us how vigilant we need to be, and still have a good holiday season.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. It was really good.
Thank you.